My name is Theodore Gray, and I'm 74 years old. Sitting here alone in my Cleveland home that once echoed with the laughter of my son Marcus and my grandchildren, but which has been silent for 8 months since my daughter-in-law Jessica convinced Marcus that I had been sexually harassing her and making inappropriate advances. Lies so convincing and manipulative that my own son now refuses to speak to me and has forbidden me from seeing my grandchildren despite 46 years of being a loving, respectful father who never once behaved inappropriately toward any woman. The accusations are completely false. But Jessica's tears and dramatic performances have poisoned my son's mind so thoroughly that he chose to believe a manipulative woman over the father who raised him with nothing but love and moral guidance. I'd love to know where you're listening from today, so please share your location in the comment below. And if this story resonates with you, I hope you'll consider subscribing, because what happened to me shows how false accusations can destroy innocent people's lives and how manipulation can turn family members against each other through calculated lies. Let me start by telling you about the relationship I had with my son before Jessica entered our lives, so you can understand how devastating it has been to lose not just him, but access to my grandchildren because of accusations that have no basis in reality. Marcus is my only child, born in 1979 to my late wife Margaret and me, after 8 years of marriage and several miscarriages that had made us treasure him even more. Margaret and I raised Marcus with strong moral values, emphasizing respect for women, honesty, hard work, and the importance of treating all people with dignity and kindness. We taught him that character was more important than success, and that how you treat others, especially those who are vulnerable, defines who you are as a person. I worked for 35 years as a high school history teacher, a profession that required me to maintain the highest standards of appropriate behavior and professional conduct around young people. Throughout my entire career, I never had a single complaint or accusation of inappropriate behavior, and I was respected by students, parents, and colleagues for my integrity and dedication to education. Margaret passed away from ovarian cancer 4 years ago, and her death was devastating for both Marcus and me. She had been the emotional center of our family, and losing her left us both struggling with grief and the challenge of maintaining our close relationship without her unifying presence. After Margaret's funeral, Marcus became even more attentive and caring toward me, visiting regularly and making sure I was coping with widowhood and the loneliness that comes with losing a life partner. We would have dinner together weekly, work on projects around my house, and share memories of Margaret that helped both of us process our grief. Marcus had always been a good judge of character and seemed to choose friends and romantic partners who shared our family values of kindness, honesty, and respect for others. When he told me he was dating Jessica Williams in 2021, I was pleased that he had found someone who could bring happiness back into his life after his mother's death. Jessica initially seemed like a wonderful addition to our family. She was charming, attentive, and appeared to genuinely care about Marcus and his happiness. She would join us for family dinners, participate in holiday celebrations, and seem to understand the importance of family relationships in our lives. During the early months of their relationship, Jessica was warm and friendly toward me, expressing interest in family history and asking questions about Margaret and the stories that define our family's legacy. She seemed to appreciate the close relationship that Marcus and I shared and claimed to value strong family bonds. Jessica and Marcus married in a small ceremony in September 2022, and I was genuinely happy for them and optimistic about their future together. Jessica seemed to make Marcus happy in ways that he hadn't experienced since his mother's death, and I was grateful that he had found love and companionship. But something began to change in Jessica's behavior toward me shortly after their wedding, though the changes were so subtle and gradual that I initially dismissed them as normal adjustments to married life and new family dynamics. She became less warm and engaging during family gatherings, often seeming distracted or uncomfortable when I was present. Jessica started declining invitations to family dinners and holiday celebrations, claiming work commitments or other obligations that prevented her from participating in activities that had previously seemed important to her. When she did attend family events, she seemed tense and eager to leave as quickly as possible. I also noticed that Jessica would position herself physically to avoid being alone with me during family gatherings, always ensuring that Marcus or other people were present when we were in the same room. At the time, I attributed this to shyness or perhaps cultural differences in how she was comfortable interacting with in-laws. Jessica began making subtle comments to Marcus about my behavior that were designed to plant seeds of suspicion and concern without making direct accusations that could be challenged or investigated. She would mention that I made her feel uncomfortable but couldn't explain exactly why or point to specific incidents. These vague complaints escalated gradually over several months, with Jessica claiming that I looked at her inappropriately, stood too close to her during conversations, or made comments that she interpreted as having sexual undertones. When Marcus asked me about these concerns, I was genuinely confused because I couldn't recall any interactions that could be interpreted as inappropriate. I began to modify my behavior around Jessica, being even more careful about maintaining appropriate physical distance, avoiding comments that could be misinterpreted, and ensuring that our interactions were always brief and focused on neutral topics like weather or current events. But no matter how careful I was about my behavior, Jessica continued to express discomfort with my presence and to suggest to Marcus that there was something inappropriate about my interactions with her. She was creating a narrative of victimization that made any normal interaction seem suspicious or threatening. The situation escalated dramatically in March 2023, when Jessica claimed that I had touched her inappropriately during a family dinner at my house. According to her story, I had brushed against her in a sexual manner while she was helping clear dishes on the table, making her feel violated and unsafe in my presence. Jessica's accusation was completely false. The incident she described had never happened, and I had been careful throughout the evening to maintain appropriate distance and professional behavior around her. But her tears and emotional distress were convincing enough to make Marcus question whether something inappropriate had actually occurred. When Marcus confronted me about Jessica's accusation, I denied it completely and explained that I had never touched her inappropriately or behaved in any way that could be construed as sexual harassment. I was shocked and hurt that such an accusation would be made against me, especially by someone I had welcomed into our family. But Jessica's performance was masterful and manipulative. She had crafted a story that was specific enough to seem credible, but vague enough to be difficult to disprove. She claimed to have witnesses who could verify her version of events, though no one else had actually seen the alleged incident because it had never happened. Jessica also revealed that she had been keeping a diary of my supposed inappropriate behavior, documenting incidents and comments that she claimed showed a pattern of sexual harassment and predatory behavior. When I asked to see this diary or to have specific examples of my alleged misconduct, Jessica claimed that the details were too traumatic for her to share. Marcus was faced with choosing between believing his wife's accusations and trusting his father's denials, and the emotional manipulation that Jessica employed was designed to make that choice seem obvious. She positioned herself as a vulnerable victim who was bravely speaking out against a powerful older man who had been taking advantage of her. Jessica's accusations became more detailed and dramatic over time, with claims that I had made sexual comments about her appearance, tried to look at her inappropriately when she was changing clothes, and had attempted to corner her alone in rooms where I could assault her without witnesses. Each new accusation was accompanied by tears, emotional breakdowns, and claims that she'd been afraid to speak up earlier because she didn't think anyone would believe her. Jessica's performance was so convincing that even I began to wonder if I had somehow unknowingly behaved inappropriately despite my conscious efforts to maintain proper boundaries. Marcus became increasingly hostile toward me as Jessica's accusations accumulated, and he began to view every interaction between us through the lens of suspicion and mistrust that she had created. Normal father-son conversations were reinterpreted as evidence of my manipulative and predatory character. The final break in our relationship came in June 2023, when Jessica claimed that I had attempted to sexually assault her during a visit to my house, while Marcus was temporarily away on a work trip. According to her story, I had cornered her in the kitchen and tried to force myself on her before she managed to escape and call Marcus for help. This accusation was particularly devastating because it represented an escalation from harassment to attempted rape, and it was accompanied by physical evidence that Jessica claimed supported her story. She showed Marcus scratches on her arms that she said came from fighting me off, though I had never laid a hand on her in any way. Jessica's performance during this accusation was her most convincing yet, with hysterical crying, visible trembling, and claims that she was terrified to be alone with me ever again. She begged Marcus to protect her from further assault and to cut off all contact with me to ensure her safety. Marcus's response was immediate and decisive. He called me that evening to inform me that I was no longer welcome in his home, that I was forbidden from having any contact with Jessica, and that he was considering whether to report my alleged crimes to the police. When I tried to defend myself and explain that Jessica's accusations were completely false, Marcus accused me of trying to gaslight and manipulate him just as I had supposedly done to his wife. He said that believing Jessica's story was the only way he could protect his family from a dangerous predator. The conversation with Marcus was the last meaningful contact I had with my son, and it ended with him telling me that I was no longer his father and that I would never be allowed to see my grandchildren again. The finality and hostility in his voice made it clear that Jessica's manipulation had been completely successful. The isolation and despair that followed were overwhelming. Not only had I lost my relationship with my son, but I had also been branded as a sexual predator and potential rapist based on accusations that were entirely fabricated. The injustice of the situation was almost unbearable. I contacted an attorney to explore my options for defending myself against Jessica's false accusations and potentially pursuing legal action for defamation and alienation of affection. But the attorney explained that proving defamation in cases involving sexual harassment allegations was extremely difficult and expensive. The attorney also warned me that pursuing legal action could backfire by giving Jessica more opportunities to make public accusations against me and potentially exposing me to criminal charges if she decided to file police reports. The legal system, while designed to protect victims, can be manipulated by false accusers. For months, I lived in isolation and depression, cut off from my son and grandchildren, and haunted by the knowledge that my reputation had been destroyed by someone who had systematically planned my destruction for reasons I couldn't understand. I began to research Jessica's background more thoroughly and discovered troubling patterns in her past relationships and family connections. Several of her former boyfriends had experienced similar situations where Jessica had made accusations that destroyed their relationships with family members or mutual friends. I also learned that Jessica had a history of manipulative behavior and had used false accusations as weapons against people who she perceived as obstacles to getting what she wanted. The pattern of behavior suggested that her accusations against me were part of a calculated strategy rather than genuine trauma responses. But something unexpected happened 8 months after Jessica's final accusation that would begin to expose her lies and provide hope for rebuilding my relationship with Marcus. Dr. Linda Patterson, a therapist who specialized in family manipulation and false accusation cases, contacted me after hearing about my situation through mutual acquaintances. Dr. Patterson had been treating several families who had been destroyed by similar manipulation tactics, and she recognized the patterns in Jessica's behavior as consistent with what psychologists call malignant narcissism and pathological manipulation designed to isolate victims from their support systems. Dr. Patterson explained that people like Jessica often target family relationships that they perceive as threats to their control over their partners, and that elderly parents are particularly vulnerable to false accusations because society is predisposed to believe claims of inappropriate behavior by older men. More importantly, Dr. Patterson had developed intervention strategies that could help expose manipulative behavior and restore damaged family relationships when family members were willing to participate in therapeutic processes designed to reveal truth and rebuild trust. Working with Dr. Patterson, I was able to document the inconsistencies and implausibilities in Jessica's accusations, and to gather evidence that supported my innocence and demonstrated the calculated nature of her manipulation campaign against me. Dr. Patterson also reached out to Marcus through intermediaries and convinced him to participate in family therapy sessions that were designed to examine the evidence objectively and to explore the possibility that he had been manipulated by someone with ulterior motives. The therapeutic process was slow and difficult, but gradually Marcus began to recognize the inconsistencies in Jessica's stories and to remember the father he had known for 44 years before Jessica entered his life. The manipulation began to unravel as Marcus examined the evidence more critically. Marcus eventually discovered that Jessica had been lying about other aspects of their relationship as well, including financial matters and her interactions with other family members. The pattern of deception extended far beyond her accusations against me and revealed a comprehensive campaign of manipulation. When Marcus confronted Jessica with evidence of her lies and demanded explanations for the inconsistencies in her accusations against me, She finally admitted that she had fabricated the stories because she was jealous of my relationship with Marcus and wanted to eliminate my influence in their marriage. Jessica's confession vindicated me completely and revealed the extent of her manipulation, but also destroyed Marcus's marriage and left him devastated by the realization that he believed lies over his own father's character and integrity. Today, more than a year after Jessica's confession, Marcus and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship and working to repair the damage that her manipulation caused to our family. While the scars from her false accusations may never fully heal, we have both learned valuable lessons about the power of manipulation and the importance of examining evidence critically. The experience taught me that false accusations can destroy innocent people's lives even when they are completely fabricated, and that family relationships can be weaponized by manipulative individuals who understand how to exploit people's emotions and prejudices. Most importantly, I learned that truth can eventually prevail over lies when people are willing to examine evidence objectively and when they have access to professionals who understand the dynamics of manipulation and false accusations. That's my story. How my daughter-in-law's false accusations of sexual harassment nearly destroyed my relationship with my son and grandchildren, but how professional intervention and the persistence of truth eventually exposed her lies and restored our family bonds. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those who smile while they destroy us, but sometimes truth and love are stronger than manipulation and lies.